somebody's sick. And they were sick. Like when 20.
Yeah, was that hard to do?
He was really sick.
No, because every time I would say, what about, like,
Oh, what went off?
you know, just.
Felt better.
So when you say it, you do the motion.
Oh, yay.
No, my husband didn't want to, but he knew what it meant.
For about 3
And he
days.
still does this.
But he still tested, they let him back in school, but he still tested positive.
But
But
so every time I do what your baby,
And
and
that's-
I would just have to that over.
Yeah.
It was
That's the
amazing.
rule.
Hello.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to see everyone. How are you, Heidi?
Hanging in there. It's a work in progress, but better than before. So it's something.
Mom, glad you could join us. It's good to see you.
Me too. Happy to be back.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Hi, Panima.
That was great.
Hey, I'm cooking dinner, so I'm not gonna have my video on, but it's good to be here.
That's really loud, isn't it? Let me turn it down.
I'll be right back. Let me turn that down.
Oh, wait.
Big mistake.
I just wanted it.
We're gonna return it to you next week.
He was willing to take it, so, hey. Y'all have it.
It'll be a bag of wrappers on the way back.
You're young, it will not keep you up. Please. That's like.
Keep trying to might get touched up.
All right.
Hey, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? So good you came at Friday, last Friday.
Today's our lucky day.
Whatever it was. Oh, yes. Watch it on. Who's this beautiful?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I want some, but I'm not having it.
Oh.
I'm a good friend, you set myself
Wait, is that the one you don't prepare for?
Sometimes do
I wasn't coming.
Is that any better? Is that better? A little bit? There's like 50 buttons back there. I moved too, and I thought I would try it out. It's not great, but all right. Hope everybody is doing well. Good to see everybody this evening. All right, so our topic is raising a mensch, okay? So my question for you is, what is a mensch? Does anybody know what the word mensch means? So, what? So the connotation is a good person. The word mensch actually just means man, right? But that is what we take it as, that it means this good person, a person of quality, a person of values. Everybody wants to raise a mensch. You want your child to be a mensch. We use the term mensch for men and women. Yes?
It's very important to my grandmother because her maiden name was Mensch. So
Really?
we are all good people, even when she reaches some people, but I am a Mensch.
That's hysterical. That's really funny. I've never heard that as like a last name. Nice. Okay. So, and it really is, right? Because this is all about like children, raising children, and we're talking about life cycle today. So it's all about what makes a mensch. So what I want you to do is open up your book to page 200. And go through, we're going to just do this first individually. Go through this list. There's about 3, 6, 7, 8. I think there's about 40 or 32 names, different qualities here. Look through it. Make your own list of the qualities that you think make a mensch. And there's no right or wrong answers. I thought this was the new book.
New book on writing.
I really tried. So all my page numbers are going to be off tonight. Okay, so it's page 198. I tried. Lost the Zoom link. I can't. Oops. Pick however many you think. And it could be all of them. And then we're going to discuss why you chose certain ones. Give me 1 second. I just need to send somebody the Zoom link. 1 second. Okay, so let's take like 3 more minutes to go through that list, circle the ones that you feel like are qualities of a mensch. Welcome. We're just looking at the page about being a mensch, which is on page 198. Don't tell them I had the wrong page, so you have no idea. Page 198, and you're just going to circle as many qualities as you that you think they connotate what a mensch should be or is. And there's a lot here, and they're all really good ones, right? And then when you're finished, I'm going to have you find a new partner, a new chavruta. Again, I know this is not a passive class, Bunny. You're going to find somebody. I mean, I can give you a break if you want to just do it with the person you're sitting next to. For tonight, I can give you a break. And just compare your list. See what's similar, what's not. Talk about maybe why you chose one, why it's something that the other person may not have chosen. Just compare your lists. Don't take like 3 or 4 minutes to do this.
Sure. No, they are not outgoing. That's just, I said that's like a personal interpretation. You're allowed. That's just public water. Because you can, how you feeling? How's it going? Right.
Hey, Patty.
Made it. Thank you so much.
Your dog is snoring, Kathy. Sorry. You can mute, that's fine. I'm glad you could join us, Patty.
There were a number of ones. That's good.
All right, so let's come back together. So first of all, a couple questions. First of all, did you have anything similar to the person you were talking with? A lot similar? Okay, so let's see what were the most, who here, let's see who had the most, right? So ambition. Nobody took ambition. Ambition, anybody? No? Okay, bravery. One for bravery. I'm very interested to see what wins here.
What are the top three or the ones we circled?
Just all the ones you circled, right? Okay, compassion. Compassion, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Oh, look at all this, compassion. Okay, hold on. That seems like a winner to me. Okay, compassion. All right, courtesy. Just 1. Creativity. 2 for courtesy, creativity. Looks like we're all on the same page for what makes a match. Curiosity. Determination. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. Let's put that on. Okay. Excellence.
Now we're just doing 3.
No, you can do as many as you want. All the qualities that you feel like make a match. Excellence. Okay. And I'm just writing on the ones. There's no right or wrong. It's just I'm writing on the ones that are the most popular. Faith. 1. Flexibility. 1. Generosity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. Guess generosity is important. Okay. Gratitude. 3, 4, 5. Okay, and gratitude. Honesty. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That was our biggest one so far, honesty. 12. Okay. So far honesty had 12, and I think compassion or generosity might have been the other one. So far honesty is the big winner. Honor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Humility. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, humility. 11. Humility. Okay. Okay. Humor. 1. Okay. Idealism. 1. Imagination. 1. Integrity. We seem to either be like 1, 2, or like everyone, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, integrity. So these are the 2 biggest at the moment. Okay, integrity. Let's see. Intelligence. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, kindness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Kindness is our winner so far. We do have a minion. Okay. All right. Love. 1, 2, 3. Loyalty. 1, 2, 3, 4. Morality. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I feel like that should go up there. Might not be our top one, but all right, we're getting to the end of our list here. Obedience. 1. Patience. 1. Perseverance. Respect. 1. Hands are flying up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Respect. Okay. So this was 11, and these were all 10.
Okay. Self-discipline. 1, 2. I'm not sure we've had any zeros yet. I feel like there's always somebody who has something. Okay, service. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I feel like that should go on the list over here. Okay. 6, another one for that one. Strength. 1. And trustworthiness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we'll put that up here as well. Okay, it's an interesting list. Trustworthiness. Okay. So out of this entire list, right, we have the biggest ones are kindness, honesty, respect, humility, with all of these others coming up like second. They were all pretty much between 8, I think. Compassion, determination, generosity, gratitude, service, integrity, morality, trustworthiness. All right. Now, it's interesting because we all come from like different walks of life, right? Like, and it's just interesting. So what does this say? What does this list, or what does your personal list that you chose say about what's important to you, to your core, but what is at the essence of your core beliefs? So take another look at like your personal list. See what goes together. Is there some core belief that comes from it that you can see popping out of it?
Putting others before yourself.
Putting others before yourself? Putting it,
I was gonna say doing for others.
doing for others?
Selflessness.
Selflessness, okay. So again, it's interesting, there's all these characteristics, but there's some that really have like maybe one person, and this is fine because there's no specific definition of a mensch, right? But I think this whole idea of, you know, what a mensch, we all think of a mensch, if we say that word, is definitely like kindness, honesty, respect, humility, and then all of these other things can be part of what being a mensch is, but this is kind of, for this group at least, and I would say probably for a lot of people, these are the things that kind of pop out. So just interesting to think about when you say the word mensch, you know, what is it, you know, in school, we're doing progress reports right now. So the teachers were like, so-and-so is such a mensch, right? And in my head, I know what they're meaning, but really in theory, they could mean all of these things. But in my head, I'm thinking that this is probably, right, they're respectful, they're a kind child, honest. This is what I'm thinking for the most part they're meaning.
You're a good kid.
A good kid, right? Just a nice kid, helps others, right? Selflessness, exactly what we've been saying. But in theory, it could mean all of these because it's just this definition of a good person, however we define that. So just something interesting to keep in mind that we all interpret it a little different. There's no right and wrong answer, but we all interpret it a little bit differently. Okay, we're going to move on to life cycle. Next page. So we're going to talk a lot. Basically, we're going from birth through 12, 13 years old, bar bat mitzvah. All right, so I'm going to erase all of this. And there are a lot of terms that are on your key term list that we will hit as we're talking about some of these things. All right. All right, so what I wrote on the table, here we go, is Brit Milah, and I wrote Simchat Bat or Brit Bat. So what is we've talked about this, does anybody remember what the word Brit means?
Oh, covenant?
Covenant, yes. Right? So Brit Milah is the covenant. This is the way we show the covenant with God. And what this is a celebration, right? So Brit Milah is how we celebrate, you know, when you have a son. What happened was there was no ceremony for a daughter. So from this terminology, they tried to think of since this is like being joyful about having a son, bringing him into the covenant, what could we make and what could we call it for a girl? So this is how we got to these two terminologies, right? So bat is a girl or a daughter, right? Simchat is sameach, which means happy, right? So this idea, simchat bat, is like happiness or joyfulness, right, of having a daughter, celebrating a daughter. Or another terminology they came up with is using, again, the covenant of a daughter, right? Just so you have an idea of what these words mean when somebody says them. All right, but they are very different ceremonies, right? Brit Milah, we have a specific ceremony that takes place. Simchat bat, we don't have a specific ceremony, but there have been ceremonies that have been developed over time. So Brit Milah, has anybody here been to a bris? Bris? Okay. And I don't mean your own bris. Somebody else's bris that you saw. Right? So what happens as a bris, at a bris? So you have, so on this list, you'll see we have a couple terms, a kvater and a kvatern, right? These are terms which basically mean grandparents. So if somebody has grandparents, and if they don't have grandparents, you'll just have maybe some honored guests, right? Walk in with the baby. So they walk in with the baby and everybody sings like Baruch haba, they welcome the child comes in, and then the child is passed to the parents, and then, well, usually the father, because the mitzvah of Brit Milah is really on the father, on the male. And then you have a person who is usually sitting in a chair, and that person is called the sandik. And that's usually like a grandfather. Again, if there's not a grandfather, it's an honored person, an honored member of the family, or it's usually a relative, but it could just be like a best friend or something. That person has a very important job. That person is going to hold the baby. So that the baby is passed to that person. I mean, it's a very big honor to be considered that person. And the other thing, so you'll have, let's say, a table. You'll have where the sandik is sitting holding the baby. Then you'll have another chair for Elijah. Okay, so we have the chair for Elijah. What holiday do we have? Do we talk about Elijah coming? Passover, great. Okay. And does anybody know why we have a chair for Elijah at a bris?
Well, Elijah is supposed to be the prophet that will show up for when the Messiah comes. So it's to continue life, to grow with life.
Right. So Elijah is the prophet who comes, who could bring the redemption of the world, the Messiah. And the idea is that every child, meaning every boy, that has the potential to be that child that could bring about the coming of the Messiah. So Elijah, there's a chair for Elijah at each Brit Milah. So then there are some blessings that are recited. The Moel, which is the person who performs the Brit Milah, performs the Brit Milah. And afterwards, there's some other blessings said. And this is also the time when the child receives their Hebrew name. So Hebrew name is interesting. So some Hebrew names could be exactly like their English name. Like you could have the English name David and your Hebrew name is David. Or you could have a name that is like your English name is David, because your parents, I'm trying to think of something that doesn't translate.
It could have been named after someone else.
Right, I'm just trying to think of like a name where, maybe the Hebrew name is Daniel, and in English it would be Daniel, but your parents didn't like the name Daniel, so they took the D and they named you David. But when you come to religious school, it is very confusing because you say your name is Daniel, and I'm going to think your Hebrew name is Daniel. Or you say your name is David, I'm going to think your Hebrew name is David, and it doesn't always work that way, but it's fine. So Hebrew name is very important. You use the Hebrew name when you're called up to the Torah for an aliyah. If somebody is reciting a mishaberach for you, the prayer for well-being, they use your Hebrew name. So it's really an important thing that is used at like important times in your life. And often the Hebrew name, parents will name you for something if they, envision that their child is, they love the name, let's say Orly, right? Or is light. So their name is My Light. Or they'll use words that have God's name somewhere in it, right? People come up with different ways that they want and different meanings that they want, and they'll research it beforehand, just like you do with English names, kind of. People do the same with their Hebrew names. Do you have a question?
Yeah, is it? I don't know. Back in the day, we were naming after, I know that the Ashkenazi name was somebody who was past.
Correct.
Sephardic can do either past or present, but it's for a person.
But it's for what?
A person.
Correct.
But now as you were just saying, that there are names that are not for people, but for activity or for meaningful words other than about a person. Is that the more modern way
So
of doing it?
no, so I think what I've seen is when there is somebody who has passed away, if there's somebody to name the child after, they name the child after that person, at least for the first name. But let's say the middle name, or if somebody is lucky enough that all their grandparents are living, no one has passed away, you really could choose like any name. That doesn't have to be contingent with a letter, of the alphabet or anything, and you can just do like a name like Orly that has certain meaning for you.
Okay, but then does it have to revert back to a biblical event or
No.
person?
No, not at all.
Just a random.
It could be just a random name, just a name that you think is pretty, right? Like some people just choose English names because they think the name is pretty. You may not even know what the name means or where it comes from, but they just think it's a pretty name. But yes, the Ashkenazi Jews, which we studied about, name after somebody who has passed away, like in memory of. Sephardic Jews name for somebody living, right? In like honor of. Somebody have a question? Nobody had a hand up? Okay. All right. So that is Brit Milah, and afterwards, of course, there's always food to celebrate and everything. Simchat Bat. So the Simchat Bat, there was, like I said, there was no specific ceremony. The way that a daughter gets her name, right? The way she gets her name is basically as soon as the daughter is born, the husband, and I say the husband only because the wife is probably still in the hospital, right? Goes to synagogue the first time that Torah is read. So it could be Monday, Thursday, or Shabbat. And you go up and he would have the aliyah, and just at the Torah, just like you see people go up to the Torah for a regular aliyah, but afterwards the rabbi would say a few blessings and actually name the child. That's really all you need for to give a daughter a Hebrew name. But a lot of people just felt like that was not enough. There was no celebration, like we celebrate for the boy, why not the girl? So we've developed, so that's still how you can go and name like a daughter at the Torah, just to give her that Hebrew name. But then people have, and I've seen this happen at, I think it is usually happens like at 1, 2, or 3 months, just when the daughter is young. But I have seen it even happen when the child is like 3 years old, which is a little strange, I'm gonna say. But everybody has their own thing. But it's a ceremony, and again, sometimes I've seen it where somebody, again, a grandparent, aunt or uncle will carry their baby in, kind of present the baby like you do, for a Brit Milah. And then because there is no specific ceremony, I've seen it where like parents have written poems for their daughter, or you will find poems online, about having a baby girl or being a first-time parent. The rabbi or the cantor will say like the Shechianu blessing and bless the child with the priestly blessing. But then really the rest of it is has many creative elements. I've seen where people will wrap the daughter in a talit that might have belonged to like a grandparent or something, or we talked about last week, like rituals with water. I've also seen where like they dip the baby's feet in water. I'm just trying to think if I've seen any other rituals. Those are the main ones that I've seen. And then again, it's just a celebration with food afterwards. Do you have a question? Yes. Yeah, of course.
So like a Brit normally happens on the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't necessarily happen these ceremonies for the daughter.
Correct, exactly. This we were commanded to do on the 8th day. Now, the only time this does not happen on the 8th day is if the baby's not well, right? So if the baby is not well, or often they don't like the baby's jaundice, so you wait until it is safe for the baby. There is no timeline, right? So that's why you name the baby at the first chance when we read Torah, and then you have the ceremony, which is just like a nice to have a ceremony, kind of when it works out for your family.
So can we talk a little bit about that? Like,
Yeah.
what is the meaning of the 8th day? I think we've talked about it amongst ourselves, but I'm just curious.
So perfect. Okay. So I'm glad you asked that.
Can I ask a question before that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
So our son was born on Friday evening, and because we were in the hospital, the Moyle said, well, we don't know if it was still Friday or if it was Saturday, because it was dusk. So they made us go, since he said, let's err on not having it on Shabbat. And
Okay.
we did that Sunday. And like, we were confused, because when I spoke to my regular rabbi, he was like, no, it should have been on Saturday, on the Sabbath. But have you heard of that if the baby's born at dusk on a Friday?
I haven't, I mean, on dusk any day, I mean, I guess on dusk any day you can make the call.
Right.
But no, it's seen as an extra simcha if there's a bris on Shabbat, right? It's Shabbat and there's a bris.
That's the only thing you
Like,
can really do on
That
Shabbat.
is right, the one ceremony that you don't delay because it's Shabbat.
Is the
right?
brit, is the brit.
But I guess, you know, at some point, if you don't know exactly the time perhaps, but you should know the time,
Well,
because
I knew the time, but obviously I didn't know what it's like out and she didn't.
and the person wasn't 100% sure. I mean, you know, it's a judgment call. There's nothing wrong with it. It's okay, you know. I mean, it was just that person's call at the time.
Because we had never heard about it, I didn't know if that was a common thing.
No, it's not that you just push it off. I mean, it's usually specific. You figure out when, you know, candlelighting is, when Shabbat is, and based on that, you know, which is the 8th day. Yeah. Is there another question?
You were about to.
I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, sorry. All right. Okay, so if you turn, I'm gonna forget about page numbers. It says circumcision in your book.
200.
Okay, great. 200. If you turn there, so this is really the verse in the Torah, right? Then God said to Abraham, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep, every male among you shall be circumcised. So is there a specific reason why we were told, why circumcision was given for the 8th day? I don't know if there's a specific reason why it was the 8th day. I don't know if anybody knows a reason why it specifically was the 8th day. That's just what, you know, to circumcise your son.
Well, do you think it was because they didn't know would live that long, maybe back in their days? To make sure the child is healthy?
Oh, that's interesting.
There must be something in the Mishnah or the Talmud that can explain.
I was thinking the same thing, did the rabbis debate this and come to the conclusion?
Yeah.
Let me see. Hold on, I will check.
That's when the law was available.
That's when the Moa was available, right?
Right. What do you're on, which is-
Why specifically on the 8th day? You know, I'm not exactly sure why specifically on the 8th day. I will look into it though. I will look into why specifically on the 8th day. I mean, one thing I would say is that you wanted to go through a whole cycle, you know, as we consider 7 days a week, a complete cycle. So one thing that I'm thinking of is you want to go through a whole cycle and then in the following week. But I'll look into specifically why it was prescribed for the 8th day. It was a very good question.
Well, it could, weren't you just talking about it, doing it within 24 hours of the birth?
No, on the 8th day.
You have to wait 8 days,
Mhm.
always.
Always, right. And you wait more if the baby is not well. You always wait 8 days,
Yeah.
but if the baby is jaundiced or sick or everything, you wait until the doctor says the baby's healthy enough. If that's 3 weeks, if that's 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 2 months, you wait, but you don't do it before the 8th day. Good question now.
Could it be to mimic the cycle of creation?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, right? So you wait the whole 7 days of creation and then you have the Brit Milah after that. That's what I'm leading to believe. See, sometimes, what? But sometimes you just grow up with this and you don't even think, but why is it the 8th day? You've just been told it's the 8th day. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm like, that's a really good question. Okay, I will look into it though and get back to you. Any other questions about this or any of the terminology that we just started taking a look at? Just trying to think over all these. Oh, okay. So we have another interesting ritual. Okay, I'm going to put on the board. Okay. Pidyon haben. Anybody ever heard of this? Pidyon haben? Okay. Ben is a son. Ha is the, okay? So the son. This is what I love about Hebrew is as long as you dissect and decode the words, once you know Hebrew, you can figure out what most things are or how they got that terminology. Pidyon is redemption, okay? And in this sense, the son is the firstborn, okay? So I actually want to read you 2 verses from the Torah that refer to Pidyon Haben. So this is redemption of the firstborn male so if you are an Israelite, so you can't be a Kohen, you can't be a Levite. So if you're an Israelite, and your first son, your first child is born and it's not a cesarean section, right? You have to meet all those requirements in order to have this celebration of Pidyon Haben.
And why not go anymore?
Because the Israelites are the lowly people. The Kohen, as I'm going to explain to you, is the Levite has no part in this ceremony, but the Kohen is the one that is going to, you are redeeming your son from the Kohen. So the idea is you were supposed to give up your firstborn male, firstborn child that's a male, not from a C-section, to the Kohen. But we don't do that anymore. So there's this whole ceremony that you basically bring the child out on like a silver platter. The child is like dressed, to the nines, right, with all this stuff, very fancy, and you present it to the Kohen. And then basically the Kohen says to the father, would you like your child, or would you like me to take your child, or would you like to redeem your child? And the father says, I would like to have my child, and gives 5 silver coins to the Kohen, redeems them, and then the rest is just a festive meal and fun and celebration, right? But let me just give you like where that actually comes from. And this is done 30 days after your child is born.
It's the firstborn child if it's a son.
Firstborn child, right, exactly.
It's the firstborn child if it is a
If it is a son and it is not a cesarean section. Thank you. Right, not the firstborn whenever you have that son, correct. Yes.
So as a firstborn, that's a cesarean, he's no longer considered a firstborn?
It is considered a firstborn, but I guess it would probably not be as pure, is what I'm assuming. So maybe that's why it wouldn't be presented to the Kohen.
But everything else applies to a firstborn that's born.
Yeah, like a Brit Milah and a Bar Mitzvah and everything. It's just this ceremony of Pidyon Haben. Great question.
I'm sorry, so do they do that if it's numbered with the second son?
No, it has to be the first child that's born to the mother. First child born to the mother. That child has to be a male, and that child has to be born naturally.
So they don't have the opportunity to do it.
You don't have it, you have a one shot. So if you have a girl first, no dice. If you have a boy, cesarean section, no dice. Yeah, it's the first one. It's kind of like if you like winning the lottery, because there's a lot of things you have to check, right? So if you check all the boxes, you get to do a Pidyon Haben. How old is this?
Yeah.
30 days after birth.
No, the whole ceremony. I'm thinking that C-sections back 2,000 years ago.
Well, not every, I mean, if a child couldn't come out, I don't know how they got the child out, but not every child could come out naturally, right?
Probably think they died.
The women died with a C-section back in that day. Okay.
Yeah.
I looked this up, it also talks about like miscarriage, then that wouldn't apply. And the thing with being born, I guess naturally, what I read about was like that it was like the mother's like open womb or something for the first time.
The first time her womb has opened, correct.
So that's why it has to do with natural birth as opposed to cesarean.
All right, let me read you where this comes from. 1 second. Okay, the first verse comes from Exodus, Shemot 13, chapter 13, verse 2. Thus said, the Lord spoke further to Moses, saying, consecrate to me every firstborn, man and beast, the first issue of every womb among the Israelites is mine. So it belongs to God. So basically you're giving it to the Kohen, you're giving the child over to God. but then you actually redeem the child back. I always think, what if the father was like, you know what, you just keep it. I'm good. You just keep it. I'm sure the Cohen would be like, that wasn't part of the deal. So that's the first one. The second proof text, I guess, comes from the book of Numbers by Midbar, chapter 18, verse 16. Okay. And it says, take as their redemption price from the age of 1 month up, the money equivalent of 5 shekels by the sanctuary weight, which is 20 gerahs, which people have translated into 5 silver coins. So it's a nice ceremony. It's fun. It doesn't occur often because you don't meet the requirements, and B, not everybody actually knows about it, right? So you have to meet these requirements, be an Israelite, and all these other things.
So what happens to the Levites? They just don't have to do it.
They don't do it, and they're not part of the redemption part of it.
So if the,
They just sing, because the Levites were known for being the singers. They sang in the temple time, so.
so if the family, how would I say, if the family are Levites, then they wouldn't do this.
They would, this is just from Israelite children, Israelites. So my brother fit this category. I mean, when I was younger, my parents would tell us about it, that it was like, I mean, it's like a very like overdone thing, right? Like all the women put like all of their jewelry on the silver tray that the baby's on. It's very ornate. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's cool and it's fun and it's a celebration, right? That is what it is. And you know, it's always good to celebrate. I mean,
And there's no cutting.
and there's no cutting, right?
Yeah.
It's just like it's just like a nice happy time, really, celebration with family and friends.
It's the next thing. It's right after the cutting.
A month later, time to heal.
Right.
Okay, so that is the beginning. So then we're gonna move to, I'm trying to think what we want to do. Okay, so then what I want to talk about is Jewish, before we talk about bar and bat mitzvah, which is 12 and 13 years old, I want to talk about just Jewish education, formal and informal Jewish education. Right, because we're talking about raising a mensch. How do you raise a mensch? You have to educate kids, right? Okay, so Jewish education. All right. So what I want to talk about, what are types of education are there for Jewish kids? Great, right? So there's 2. There's Hebrew day school, which is basically they go to a school and they're learning secular studies for half the day and religious studies for half the day. Then there is religious school or Hebrew school, you know, these days it's called religious school, used to be called Hebrew school. Which is like what I run here at Temple Israel, where kids come Sundays, midweek, we have the Shabbat requirements. What are other places kids can learn?
They learn what they see in the family.
Great, home, right? Jewish education in the home, great. What are other places they could learn?
Camp.
Great, very important one. Great place for a kid to learn how to be Jewish, camp, absolutely.
Youth group.
Love it. Youth group, another great place of informal. So what we're seeing is there's like informal education and formal education. What are other places where they learn it? But there's also Jewish preschool, right? Like Charlotte Jewish Preschool or JPS, also preschool.
Yeshivas.
Yeshiva, right? Which is all intensive study.
Media, general media.
Media?
Yeah, I mean, internet, books, library.
Okay. I'll just put books for right now. But yeah, okay. Textbooks. Great, synagogue, great. You know, for teens, we have Hebrew High. So there's a lot of places for, you know, for this formal and informal education. So one question I wanted to bring up, for those who grew up Jewish, right? of these, what were positive experiences and what were maybe negative, if there were any negative experiences, and why? Because we always have a choice, like with raising Jewish kids. Where do we want to send them? What do we want to send them to? How do we want to educate them? So yeah, Beth, do you want to start?
For me, it was USY, which is youth group,
Mm.
and
Was positive.
absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's what defined me as a Jewish person.
Mm.
Even though I grew up in a conservative shul and we went to shul and had Sabbath dinners and whatnot, it really didn't connect with me until I did it with hundreds and hundreds of other kids.
Mm-hmm.
And being from New York, it's a little different here. Being from New York, there's a temple on every corner, so we would
Correct.
get together with other temples, and that was really what connected me more to Judaism than anything else.
Great. So youth group for you. Was there any negative experiences?
Um,
And maybe not negative, more so I think it's effective and least effective.
So the thing that was challenging growing up is when I became a higher officer in the youth group, like we had
Yeah.
to sign a contract that, we'd be Shomer Shabbos. I wasn't allowed to take my SATs on a Saturday.
Right.
And so things like that became more challenging, but I didn't,
Okay.
it wasn't negative, it was just a challenge.
Right. And the reason for the whole thing is that SATs is because you're supposed to be a dugma, like a role model, like on Shabbat, she would be at services. So obviously she couldn't take her SATs, right? So the idea is to be a role model for the other teams. Thank you for sharing. Yes, Bunny.
Well, also I grew up in a conservative type of an environment,
Okay.
which is home life, being a kosher home life.
Mm-hmm.
I speak in the synagogue, and I went to the Jewish Community Center for my social life. But what really,
Ooh, JCC. Thank you. Yep.
what really upset me was that I had to go to Hebrew school 2 days a week.
Right.
I was the only girl in my Hebrew school class.
Oh, wow.
At the time, conservative was not accepting equality for women. So here I went to Hebrew school and I got nothing out of it
Sure.
as far as a party or a ceremony.
Right.
On Sunday, I had to go to Sunday school with the girls who did not do Hebrew, but we had a confirmation.
Okay.
Now, I was the only girl that could read Hebrew, so it was my job to read the Ten Commandments in Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
But none of the other girls had to do anything like that. And I sort of considered it, I shouldn't say a punishment, but it upset me that I was different from the other girls.
For sure. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
It made a permanent imprint in my life.
Hmm.
Now I'm happy that I know how to read Hebrew and I can help other people read Hebrew. But it wasn't until I really matured that I learned to accept the fact that my parents knew what they were doing.
Hmm.
But
Interesting.
it hurt at the time.
Yeah.
It was very, very painful at the time, where I couldn't go out and play girls' sports or, play stickball out on the street or whatever, because I had to go to Hebrew school
Mm-hmm.
and get nothing out of it.
Wow.
So
Times have
it was
changed.
interesting,
Wow. Very interesting.
which you'll read about in a month or so.
Anybody else want to share any experiences? Yeah.
Early growing up, I did Hebrew school, and then later on, I guess in high school, we had BBYO.
Mm-hmm. Which is also youth group.
Yeah,
Another
I
youth
didn't
group.
stay- that gave me sort of like a foundation. My family wasn't particularly religious at home, so I didn't really have that. But when I went to college, Hillel, that was one thing.
Oh,
that we didn't.
Hillel.
Yeah.
Great.
Hillel
Thank
was-
you.
Yeah, Hillel was really when I started to learn mostly about how to live Jewishly. It was a really great experience for me. And, getting to know other Jewish kids from, other parts of the state or other states. And we had Shabbat dinner every Friday night. It was potluck, so people brought things.
Yeah.
And then every Sunday we had a bagel brunch, and then the holidays that we were in school, like we would have a Passover Seder.
Mhm.
So much fun. And even like they would come out of the woodwork to come to the Seder, but then you wouldn't see them really.
For the rest of the year.
But,
Food brings Jews together. It just is, right?
yeah, but, it was a really good experience for
Where were you in college?
West Virginia University.
That's great. Well, it's interesting because you're saying like Hillel, and what was the big thing? Like all of these Jews together, and like Beth, you were saying as a teenager, that was the same draw, like just so many other people around to celebrate, you know, because again, like Judaism, I think we've talked about it. You're not, that's why you need a minyan like to pray, right? Because you're not supposed to live Judaism, a Jewish life in isolation. You're supposed to be with others, celebrating and everything. Wonderful. All right, so what I want to talk about is like different ways in like a household. How would you, you know, create a Jewish life like for a child in a household? And I want to talk about 4 different ways to kind of achieve this and brainstorm with you what would make for like Jewish memories, Jewish impact on a child. And I'm using a child, but this also could be for an adult. I'm just using it in the context because we're talking about birth through B'nai Mitzvah, but this could also be relating to an adult as well. All right, so the first is model Jewish learning. And this is, we're talking about really like the home environment, right? So one is model Jewish learning. How do we model Jewish learning in the household?
We want to have Jewish objects.
Wait, hold on. Hang on. Let me put all 4 of them on the board, but keep that thought. Model Jewish learning, identify Jewish teachable moments. So think about what those would be in the household, right? The third is create positive Jewish memories. That's terrible writing, hold on. And the 4th category is make room for the holy. I mean, in a way, these are all interrelated, interconnected, but they are also 4 distinct categories. All right, Bunny, did you want to start? What is model Jewish learning at home?
Well, again, as I said, having Jewish objects in the home, a menorah, Shabbat candles, people at home,
Okay,
celebrating family holidays, Shabbat.
great. Anything else? Model Jewish learning? Maybe Jewish books, right? A chumash, a siddur, various things like that. A book to study the weekly parsha.
Well, like with my daughter, before we go to bed at night, we say the Shema.
Nice.
And I don't know if this is accurate or not, but we do a Mishavera for the people that we know in our lives that are sick or, you know, not feeling
Oh, that's
well.
beautiful. But I love that you incorporate that into it. I love that. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
I think a big part of it is modeling it yourself, like taking the hands.
Mm-hmm.
And model for the kids how to study the Torah and just everything else and going outside of even just for a study to read other books and modeling it for them.
I love that. And there's a whole series called PJ Library. I don't know if everybody's heard of it. PJ Library is all Jewish books for kids like 0 to 12. I think they've expanded now, right? They come to your house free every month. And so that, again, just like you were saying, modeling, reading about, you know, how kids celebrate Judaism, how teens celebrate Judaism. Yes.
That's funny, because I was just telling Stephanie about this, and they have a book that they sent to my daughter called SD is a Mensch.
Oh, I think we just got that book. Yeah.
Girl, it's so cute. I won't go through the whole thing, but I mean, like, most of it is like talking about how she's not being very menschy and not doing what she should do. And then by the end of the book, she does something that's very kind for another friend. And finally, SD
Is a mensch. Nice. I love that. Okay, so that's modeling. Did you have something? Okay, modeling Jewish learning. All right. Identify Jewish teachable moments. So I'll give you an example, right? There is a blessing you say. So one could be exactly like Jen was just saying, like saying a mishavera, right? So saying prayer if there's somebody you know that needs healing, right? Finding those moments. There's a blessing when you see a rainbow. So you see the rainbow, It's not a Jewish thing per se, but you make that moment Jewish. You know, there's a blessing you say when you see thunder and lightning. There's a blessing you see when you see the ocean for the first time in a long time, right? So
There's
it's
one that you say when you wake up.
correct, modani, right?
To the, bathroom or whatever.
There's a blessing you say every time you go to the bathroom, correct? Right, because you're thanking God for openings in your body, because if you didn't have the openings to go to the bathroom, it would be a big problem and you'd be sick. So you have to thank God for these things. It sounds silly, but it actually makes a lot of sense, right? Right, so making these moments of everyday life, but making them Jewish. Great, I love that.
There's also,
Yeah,
there's also, and I don't know if it's positive or negative teaching moment, but there's the Jewish teaching moment when you say to your child, you will not do this because it is a Jewish holiday.
yeah,
And I am sorry, but you're not playing and watch the war go on in your house for 48 hours.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
there's a war and there comes a certain time.
Yes.
that you say, no, you're not playing soccer on Shabbat.
Yeah.
Or you're not playing, I'll go back, not Shabbat so much, yes, you're not playing, yeah, on
Yom Kippur, yeah.
right, Rosh Hashanah. I'm sorry, and call the coach and say, you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
and really get annoyed.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully somehow that becomes part of them by osmosis.
Right, because they remember how important it was to you, even if it's not important for them at that point. They remember how important it was to you, and hopefully later it becomes important to them.
You can survive the anger.
If you can survive the anger. Or, you know, let's say you're away for Shabbat, but you bring travel candlesticks. So even though you're away on vacation, Shabbat still happens on vacation, and you bring the candlesticks, the wine, the challah. Yes.
So when we've been on vacation, we have visited a synagogue for like Friday night Shabbat dinner. So my husband went to Hawaii on our honeymoon, and we found the synagogue on Maui, and we went to their Shabbat dinner.
Nice.
It was really cool.
Right, because your Judaism comes with you even on vacation, right? Like, I love that. That's wonderful. I always want, that's the job I want. I want to be the rabbi of the synagogue in Hawaii. I mean, if you're going to be like, why be stuck in the Midwest or something? Be in Hawaii. I mean, right?
This also works as a teacher, like teachable moments, like we celebrate Hanukkah and not Christmas. Like obviously for us, our kids one day they're
Correct.
Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. Absolutely. And that's okay, right? This family does this family does this, and that's all fine because we're still family and they can celebrate their holiday and we can celebrate our holiday. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's lots I can help you with that conversation later when you get to that point. Okay, creating positive Jewish memories. I mean, a lot of things we've talked about, like ways to create them, but Beth.
I know for me, every time I think of when I was a little kid, my father standing up and doing the whole Kiddush.
Nice.
And I know my daughter will tell me all the time that Passover, which is my favorite holiday, is her favorite holiday because of all the traditions that we have instituted in our family, and those are her favorite Jewish memories, or just memories, not Jewish memories.
Right. And even if you think about it, like in terms of like just positive Jewish memories, think about all the foods. I know we talk about food here, you know, and like all the foods when you say to somebody, what's your favorite? This is chicken soup and my baby's knishes and the kreplach and all the things, right? Gefilte fish. Those are just positive Jewish memories that they have, you know? What are other ways do you think we could do create positive Jewish memories?
Our family did a lot with music. Singing.
Nice.
You know, not just holiday songs, but just everyday songs that had Jewish or Hebrew content.
Beautiful. I mean, it's a, like weekly memories such as Shabbat dinner, right? Think of the Shabbat dinners you had at Hillel or with your USY friends or at camp, right? So many things that you just do in your daily life, but they can be these positive Jewish memories. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be like forced into kids or adults. It can just be easy part of life. And holidays, you know, like go all out, have great celebrations. I was at Maddie's house one time. They were totally decorated for Hanukkah and it was like beautiful and I loved it. Still, that spinning dreidel that I have is my favorite, just so you know. I went there and I was like, this dreidel is amazing. And then they bought me one. Loved it. But right, you want to make it fun for kids. You like say they remember that's what we do in school. We go all out for the holidays and then those things stand out for the kids. How about making room for the holy? What do you think that might mean?
Taking them to synagogue.
Taking them to synagogue. I mean, I think like Shema at bedtime would be another one.
Selling those moments to say blessings.
Yes.
I didn't even think.
Just taking the moments to say blessings together.
You know, talking about God. Kids have tons of questions about God. They have like these amazing questions. You don't have to have all the answers, but just to make it like God is not a taboo subject. You can talk about God and ask questions and question about. My kids all have, this is from Maddie, my kids all have jobs on Shabbat that they look forward to get the table ready. Hold on, let me see what the rest of that says. Aria always likes dressing up in a fancy dress for the meal. Oh, I love that. Love that. And Kathy, sorry, I just saw that now. Kathy was talking about, brought up Shabbat before. And Maddie said, we talked about things that we see in the world through a Jewish scope, teachable moments. Oh, I love that. Thank you guys. I'm sorry I didn't see those before. Great, wonderful. So, that's just to give you like a little bit of, there's like the formal Jewish education, but then there's like all of these other ways to teach kids to be Jewish and then to just create like positive, fun, easy memories. Like, for example, just like Maddie was saying, Aria, like she's going to remember that Shabbat was exciting because she put on a fancy dress, right? Like, and that just made it special for her. I love that.
In the congregation and seeing that there were other kids.
Yes.
Celebrating also, it's not just you.
Correct. And I think that's part of it, is like just coming in community, right? Like you come to synagogue, it's so much nicer when there's a lot of people there. It's just very festive. Like this past Shabbat, we had like the wonderful bat mitzvah and it was super festive and just really just a joyous celebration. And it's, the more people that are there, the nicer it is. And yeah, junior congregation, same thing. Yeah.
So over the pandemic, the lockdown, so several of our friends who have children and families, and we get together every so often for, well, of course, we couldn't at that time. But what we did was we celebrated Havdalah together over Zoom, and it was really cool. Everybody got out their Havdalah sets, and we said the blessings
Nice.
together. And I also think like having friends over for Shabbat
Yes.
dinner, those make really special memories too.
Absolutely. Because like, dinner during the week, there's not really long time for dinner. Everybody's busy. There's homework, got to go to bed. But like Shabbat it's a break and you just have the time, to be able to sit and talk and relax. And then this is Maddie. We've also been prepping them to give mini divrei Torah during the meal. Oh, that's so cute. That they take time to prepare so they feel a part of it and feel proud of themselves. Oh my God, I love that. That is so sweet. Oh my God. Her kids are going to third and going to second. No, that's wrong. Hold on. Let me think. I should know this. Going to third and going to first. Yes, third and first. Okay. Brain fog there. But her kids make Passover videos every year. These amazing Passover videos. They're quite special. I love their kids. Barbara.
I think part of it is I'm listening to everyone. I think your children are young. You can raise 3 children in the same Jewish household, doing the same things, doing specific things, or hoping they're learning by osmosis. The way I was raised, I just learned from my mother. They didn't do all of these things. It was just the way my parents lived or my grandparents. But you can raise 3 children and you can find them one on this end, and one in the middle who was made for compromises and happy with life. So, and I have grandchildren who are well-versed and not so versed at all, and some 3 in the same family who are very well-versed, somewhat versed, and could care less. But they were all raised in the same way, in the same Jewish household, doing the same things. And I think that's something, as I have grown older, that I have learned. It was nothing that Bob and I did or didn't do. We said, no, you're not swimming on a swim meet on a holiday. You're not playing soccer. Yes, we want you to go to Hebrew school. Yes, you're going to be bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. You're going to confirmation, except my third one, we gave up on him. It was more than we could stand. We were old by then. But where I'm going is that when you look at little children, it's so much easier because you have now so much more things and ideas and people to help you do those things than I had when my children.
Mm.
And when I was younger as well, because I grew up in a town that didn't have all this stuff.
Right.
There was no
Mhm.
preschool, there was no GCC, there was nothing.
There was nothing.
The synagogue and a little baby one.
And as I said, I grew up in a Reformed congregation, which was like, excuse me, ever, anybody through the Reformed congregation, which Sunday school was not a whole big learning experience. I'm sure that, you know, we laugh about, we learned this in Hebrew school, and I go, I didn't learn it. I think I learned by watching my mother and my grandparents, and my
Right.
memories are those memories of watching them do those things, or my grandmother telling me how she came over and steerage glass, or my old grandmother running up and down the hall with the filter fish in the house, stuff like that. Ugh.
Right, all the informal memories, but I think we learned so much from informal
But
things.
it's so much easier when your children are little
Yeah,
now than when my children grew are, that's almost 150. So, you know, it makes a difference, and sitting here and listening is very interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, it can,
thank you.
the fact that people are so separated out, you know,
You mean distance wise or?
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you found other people here to get together with. And so it becomes like a different, a new family.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
Well,
for sure.
I married into the family that was Jewish.
Mm-hmm,
And we would have Hanukkah parties, we had to rent a space like this.
mm-hmm,
We had 30 to 40 kids running around all at once. And then the adult level up above that. So they were big family parties, and the whole family lived in Rochester. Everybody was there.
Everybody was there.
everyone used to live in the same place.
And when we did holidays, we all got together,
Sure.
which is what attracted me to the family to begin with. So and it's unfortunate.
I just think it's the generations, as the
It
generations,
is, it
as
is.
the generations go, it's easier now than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, or for my mother raising children, or for me raising my kids in a Jewish community. Charlotte was very small.
Right,
A long time ago. We didn't have all of these things, and nobody really cared whether you were Jewish or not, and you had to fight for whatever little bit you wanted to happen for your child.
mm-hmm,
You created a scene and therefore embarrassed your child, and he never talked to you again for weeks. And it was, oh my God.
there's a lot more places now to live easier as a Jew. right?
Right, and my kids had Jewish friends, and we did things together, but it's still different.
It is. And also in New York, where it's very together. And there's whole communities.
I tried growing up Jewish in the 50s in Charlotte.
Yeah.
There's probably like nothing here.
Yeah, not one of the greater experiences. Not that not in my whole life have I ever experienced true anti-Semitism growing up in this city. But I knew it was always there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it was always there, but I never, and a lot of my friends would tell you they did, but I never did. I had a very accepting group of friends. I grew up in a very accepting community,
That's great.
but, you know, today it's not, I mean, my granddaughter tells me at Myers Farm how many times she put people down for comments they made, that they didn't know what they were saying. And she would say, you're stupid for saying that. And I went, could you say that nicer, Liz? She said, no. Yeah, but it is there.
All right. Great discussion. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We are going to turn to bar bat mitzvah in the time we have left. All right. So the page that says the meaning of 13, Rabbi Eddie Feinstein. I think it might be on page 209 or 205. I couldn't just remember which way you guys were. All right. Page 205. So I'm going to ask you to find a chavruta. If you want to get up, great. I'm going to be easy on you guys. If you want to just sit, also fine. So read this with your chavruta. Read through, the meaning of 13. We know when girls are 12, boys are 13. They have a bar bat mitzvah. This is the time when you're seen as becoming a Jewish adult. You take part in leading parts of the service, you have an aliyah, you read from the Torah, you get a Devar Torah, you're accepted as in part of the community, you can be the 10th person in a minyan, you get to wear a talit for the actual first time. So read through this here. And what we're gonna talk about here is like, why 13, right? Why at this age do you become, right now, a lot of places, they just have moved it that both girls and boys are both at 13. It just makes it easier. Yeah, it just makes it easier. But discuss the purpose of having the bar bat mitzvah at 13, let's just say, right? Why not 15? Why not 17? Why not 10, right? Why 13? And yeah, so kind of discuss that, and then we're going to get back together, and I have a couple more questions to ask you based on what you've been reading and that discussion. What? So why is it's like a coming of age ritual, right? Bar bat mitzvah. Why at the age of 13? Like, that this age is like a tumultuous age, right? Kids have braces, their voice is like changing. Why do we think that bar bat mitzvah took place at this kind of like odd time in a child's life? Take like another 2-3 minutes, and then we'll discuss together.
And they have to make them adults, get them out as far as practical. And then they invent all these stories. Who actually, how well they got as funny as it was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they adjusted all of these people and their the things that they did, when we talk about Abraham's mission. That's what it establishes.
All right, we'll take one more minute and then we'll come back together.
Fixed the time. How would they know? 15 or 12, you know, they weren't there. So, but they do have a good sense.
Okay, so in the article, right, by Edwin Feinstein, who works out in LA, he tells us of all these things that occurred to these different figures in Judaism at the age of 13. But from what you've read, why do you think that we have the bar bat mitzvah at this age? This interesting time of life. Think about how you were at 12, 13, or maybe just, you know, why do you think this is the age? Okay, Maddie is gonna start. Thank you. They're old enough to decide to be Jewish by their own choice and desire, not just because that is what their family celebrates. They're able to make the choice to own it and to make decisions based on that choice. Great, thank you. Yeah.
At a bar about this, right? You're basically handing over everything that they need to do their Jewish learning on their own. You're giving them the Talmud, you're giving, some people give this to the door, like.
Right.
So they're passing it on. So at that point, it is your turn to either take it and run with it or leave it.
I love that, right? They have what they need. You've given them a siddur, you give them maybe a chumash, they have a talit, you know, they've been in religious school. In order to have a bar bat mitzvah, you have to be in a religious school for at least 5 years. So they've had Jewish learning, they've been learning the prayers, they've learned Hebrew, right? So just what you said, they've had the tools and now it's like, okay, it's up to you now. Great. Any other thoughts? Why this age? Does anybody think maybe it should be a different age? I mean, maybe those of you who had kids who are bar bat mitzvah. Yeah, yeah, anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
So we had a ton of discussion, I have to say, probably like however long this ritual's been around, but hundreds of years, thousands. That was an age where you were more of an adult, but today it feels like that maturity is a little bit.
Yes, great point, right? So 13 way back, you were like an adult, right? You got married by the time you were 16 to 18, had kids. It's different today, right? So yes, thank you for bringing that up. 13 was a very different back then. I think if they saw what 13 was today, you probably wouldn't have a bar bat mitzvah at 13, right? But you really were seeing like your entry world into the Jewish world, and a few years later you were married, right? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Just the way you hold it, this is the steps you take.
This is what you do.
But I think the whole part of like 13 is also really difference between what is right. What their own devices, like your choice to make the choice between what is right and wrong. So we taught you the difference between right and wrong. And it's almost that in between before you hit adulthood where you should know by now. But obviously, I think 13 is at the point where you do know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's on you to make those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just working with kids, like you do, so 7th grade is when they basically have their bat and bar mitzvahs. And you do see there is a different level there. It is so interesting. In 6th grade, they are young. By the time they finish 7th grade, they have completely changed. Like they're growing, they're bigger, there's this maturity in that like year that happens, you know? So it just is really interesting. And for kids who have in the past had their more their bat mitzvah in 6th grade, they're too young. Like they are just young. And a year later, they would have been like a different child, right? So it is very interesting when you say that. Any other thoughts?
Well, so much has changed from when these traditions were established. I mean, 13, you're almost middle age.
Exactly.
Your life expectancy was
Right.
only into the late 30s.
Right.
And so you had, so the timing was more appropriate than it is today.
Absolutely.
I have two grandsons that are in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't have been married 2 years. The same age my oldest grandson is at 23.
Right. It was different. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
they're still playing, you know.
Right.
They're like teenagers, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a real different world.
Absolutely.
Maybe the world of Judaism as a whole, we step back and say, hey, we gotta make this, change this. 13 is too young, you know, 18, we'll make it 18.
Mhm.
Give them another 5 years.
Give them another 5
And
years.
tell them that, you know, the other thing is they start eating a lot, so they gotta get out on their own. So you gotta establish them as adults, because they have to start getting out
Yeah.
and working in the field.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, we don't have that any longer, but that's, at that age, they had to.
Yeah, no, they were
contribute.
they were already like adults. You know, a couple
Yeah,
years
right.
later, they were adults expected
They
to
had to
help the
work like
family and
adults,
work.
too.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now, I will say the interesting thing is watching so many kids and being involved with them having their bar mitzvah. Although when they start, you know, the preparation, they are like so nervous and so scary. And sometimes in my head, I'm like, is this a crazy thing that they're taking this on at 12 and 13? Maybe they are too young. But when they come to the other side, they are so proud of themselves that I think that the next years of their teenage life, there's like a self-confidence that they have that they wouldn't have had they not had to gone through this training and getting up in front of like 100 to 200 people and doing all of this. Even if they are anxious to do it, they're like so proud of their accomplishments afterwards.
I definitely see that with like one specific bar mitzvah that we saw here. Like she did a wonderful job, but after seeing her around the synagogue after, like she just seems so confident in herself, and it's like this is like what she's supposed to. It just is crazy to see how nervous she was at first,
Yeah.
and the difference after.
Oh, I love that you
It's
saw
been
that.
really interesting to see, yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Don't you think it's a hard time? I always thought anyway, this is a hard time for them to have a bar mitzvah, because in 7th grade, you're kind of finding your social
Totally.
and suddenly this year out of your life,
Physical piece.
and your physical.
Yes.
But this year out of your life, you are different
Yes.
than you were with your friends in 6th grade.
Totally
and
true.
with your friends in 8th grade. And I always thought that it was a very difficult time because you had to explain why I have to be a Hebrew school twice a week,
Mhm.
why I have to do all of this, and why am I doing all of this? And I think it's been made harder in the last, and I know for you and the Cantor and the rabbi, I'm sure, has been harder in COVID because their
Right.
friends have not been able to experience this with them.
Correct.
And have the parties and the things that they had that,
Absolutely.
everybody had before, that my children had, at least they had their 50 kids that we were trying to keep quiet while they stood
Correct.
up there. And it's a hard time, because this is a hard age.
It's a really tough age. They're changing so much. They're not even comfortable in their own skin, right? I
They
mean,
don't know who they are one day to the next.
correct. So it is. I mean, it's just a really interesting thing that we do all these things to kids who are, it's like maybe the most awkward time of their life for them.
They're still babies.
They're still babies, and yet we put them through this whole ceremony. So it is interesting, you know, it's something, look, it is what it is. This is when we do it, but it's interesting when you think about it, you know, on one hand, they're really young and it's a really awkward stage. And on the other hand, when you see them on the other side of it, they've grown so much and they've grown so much and they're only 13. And you're like, wow, we've given them amazing tools for them to be able to accomplish and like feel so good about themselves going out into the world. So it is just interesting. Yeah, Bunny.
I was gonna say, I think it's interesting that in the lessons here and in the book, nowhere, I mean, except for the fact that it's saying that at 13, Levi and his brother attacked a group of, people. But nowhere does it say in this book particularly that life has changed so much, and what you all have said, that things have changed over the years, over the centuries, over the millennium, that, things that were expected of you
Mhm.
5,000 years ago is not only expected, but there's more and more piled on you.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
I just, you're right, 13 is a tough.
And it's a lot for a kid.
And did they count the years the way we count the years? Was 13 actually?
To my knowledge,
a
yes.
cycle
Of the Hebrew calendar, at least, right? Which is a few days shy of the Gregorian calendar, but it would still be within that same time. So before we finish, I just want to tell you 3 movies that you might want to watch that give you a little bit about bar bat mitzvahs this whole time for a child. They're all a little bit different. There's one that is just a kind of a sentimental movie is Praying with Lior. I'm not exactly sure where these are available, so you'll have to check. But Praying with Lior, that's kind of the more sentimental one. The funny one, which you may have seen, Keeping Up with the Steins. It is a very funny movie. It's kind of like seeing, B'nai mitzvahs to the ultimate, like kind of like on the scale of weddings and the craziness.
Like it is in New York.
Like it is in New York or California, which
I haven't seen any in Charlotte before the pandemic.
and I did hear about a crazy one this past year in 7th grade where the kids came in the next day and they were like, whoa.
Jake went to one and he just gave his buddy.
Yeah.
Or ice.
That's the one.
Oh.
They all came to school the next day and it was like, I don't think they've ever experienced that, but they were telling everybody.
Your ice comes from the table.
They were like dumbfounded. I mean, it was, and then there's another one called A Serious Man. I actually don't really know about this one. A Serious Man. So these are just 3 different, types of movies dealing with B'nai Mitzvah, this time of like this, ritual, Jewish ritual passage to becoming a Jewish adult. But as we tell them, and Rabbi Walk always tells them, like, you're a Jewish adult, but you still have to listen to your parents because you're not really adult in the regular world and your parents are still in charge. Okay, I think it is 9 o'clock. So thank you all so much for a great class, great discussion. Thank you all. Great to see all of you on here. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.